Don't translate the text, just listen. Let your brain get used to the sound and rhythm. Then listen and repeat out loud. It's the best way to learn to recognize English easily, even when it's fast and long.
Jane Eyre, Charlotte Bronte. Chapter 6. Learning to like school. Life at Lowood no longer seemed so hard as spring approached. We enjoyed walking and playing in the surrounding countryside. But with fog lying constantly in the valley, it was not a healthy place for a school. And by May, more than half the girls were seriously ill with typhus fever. As a result of poor food and bad living conditions, many girls died. While there was fear and death inside the school, the sun shone on the flowers outside and on the flowing streams in the valleys. So I and the few who had escaped illness enjoyed the beautiful summer weather with no lessons or discipline at all. Helen Burns could not come walking with me because she was ill, not with typhus, but with tuberculosis. At first, I had thought she would recover, but when I learned her illness was serious, I decided to visit her at night for what might be the last time. I found her lying in bed, looking pale and weak. "You've come to say goodbye," she whispered, coughing. "You are just in time. I'm going soon." "Where, Helen? Are you going home?" I asked. "Yes, to my long home. My last home." "No, no, Helen." I was crying at the thought of losing her. "Jane, your feet are cold. Lie down with me and cover them with my blanket." I did so. "I am happy, Jane," she continued. "You mustn't cry. By dying young, I'll avoid suffering. I am going to heaven." "Does heaven really exist?" I asked.
Yes, I'm sure of it. I'm sure our souls go there when we die, she answered firmly. Will I see you again, Helen, when I die? Yes, you will go to heaven too, Jane. I could not quite believe that heaven existed, and I held tightly to Helen. I did not want to let her go. We kissed goodnight and fell asleep. In the morning, Miss Temple found me asleep, with Helen Burns dead in my arms. She was buried in the local churchyard. Gradually, the typhus fever left Lowood, but the number of deaths made the public aware of the poor conditions in which the pupils lived. Money was raised to build a new school in a better position. Many improvements were made, and Mr. Brockhurst lost his position as manager. So it became a really useful place of education. I stayed for 8 more years, for the last 2 as a teacher. I was busy and happy all that time, relying greatly on the help and encouragement of my dear friend, Miss Temple. But when she married and moved to a distant part of the country, I decided it was the moment for me to change my life too. I realized I had never known any other world apart from Lowood or Gateshead. Suddenly, I wanted freedom, or at least a new master to serve. So I advertised in a newspaper for a job as a governess. When I received an answer from a Mrs. Fairfax who wanted a governess for a girl under 10 years old, I accepted, with the permission of the new headmistress of Lowood.
Chapter 7. Thornfield and Mr. Rochester. Thornfield Hall was a large gentleman's house in the country near a town called Millcote. There, after my 16-hour journey, I was welcomed by Mrs. Fairfax. She was a little old lady dressed in black, who seemed glad to have someone else to talk to apart from the servants. Although the house was dark and frightening, with its big rooms full of heavy furniture, I was excited at being in a new place and looked forward to my new life there, working for kind Mrs. Fairfax. But I was surprised to discover on my first full day at Thornfield that Mrs. Fairfax was not, in fact, the owner, as I had assumed, but the housekeeper, and that my new master was a Mr. Rochester, who was often away from home. My pupil was a girl called Adele, 7 or 8 years old, who was born in France and could hardly speak English. Luckily, I had learned French very well at Lowood, and had no difficulty in communicating with young Adele, a pretty, cheerful child. It appeared that Mr. Rochester, who had known Adele and her mother very well, had brought Adele back to England to live with him after her mother had died. I taught her for several hours every day in the library, although it was not easy to make her concentrate on anything for long, as she was clearly not used to the discipline of lessons. One day I took the opportunity of asking Mrs. Fairfax a few questions about Mr. Rochester, as I was curious about him, and the little housekeeper seemed happy to talk. "Is he liked by most people?" was my first question. "Oh yes, his family have always been respected here. They've owned the land round here for years," she replied. "But do you like him? What is his character like?"
I have always liked him, and I think he's a fair master to his servants. He's a little peculiar, perhaps. He's traveled a lot, you know. I expect he's clever, but I can't tell, really." "What do you mean, peculiar?" I asked, interested. "It's not easy to describe. You're never sure whether he's serious or joking. You don't really understand him. At least I don't. But that doesn't matter. He's a very good master." I could get no further information from Mrs. Fairfax about Mr. Rochester, but instead she offered to show me round the whole house. We went through many large, impressive rooms, finally reaching the top floor, where there was a narrow corridor with several small black doors, all shut. I stopped to look at them, and thought for a moment they looked like prison doors, hiding evil secrets. No sooner had I turned away to go downstairs than I heard a strange, ghostly laugh. "Mrs. Fairfax," I called out, as the housekeeper was already on her way downstairs. "Did you hear that laugh? Who is it?" "It may be Grace Poole," she answered calmly. "She is paid to help the housemaid in her work, and always sews in one of those rooms." I heard the laugh again. It did not sound human to me. "Grace," called Mrs. Fairfax. I did not expect anyone to answer, but in fact a door opened, and a middle-aged woman appeared. She looked too plain and sensible to be a ghost. "Too much noise, Grace," said Mrs. Fairfax. "Remember your instructions." Grace nodded and went back into the room.
Several times in the next few months, I went up to the top floor again, where I could look out of the high windows in the roof to see the surrounding countryside and be alone with my thoughts. I was very happy teaching pretty little Adele in the daytime and talking to kind old Mrs. Fairfax in the evening, but I felt that something was missing from my life. I had dreams of a greater and better life, and above all, I wanted to do more. People are not always satisfied with a quiet life, and women as well as men need action. While on the top floor, I often heard Grace Poole's strange laugh, and sometimes I saw her too. She used to go silently in and out of the room with a plate of food or a glass of beer. One day in January, I had a free afternoon, as Adele was ill, so I decided to walk to Hay, a village 2 miles away, to post a letter for the housekeeper. It was a bright, frosty day, and I was enjoying the fresh air and the exercise. Stopping on the lonely road, I watched the sun go down in the trees behind Thornfield, and then in the silence I heard a horse approaching. Suddenly there was a crash as the horse slipped and fell on the ice, bringing down its rider. I ran to see if I could help the traveler, who was swearing furiously as he pulled himself free of his horse. "Are you hurt, sir? Can I do anything?" I asked.
"Just stand back," he growled. As he lifted himself painfully to his feet, obviously his leg hurt him, and he sat down quickly. "If you need help, sir, I can fetch someone either from Thornfield Hall or from Hay," I offered. "Thank you, but I don't need anyone. I haven't broken any bones," he replied crossly. I could see him clearly in the moonlight. He was of medium height, with wide shoulders and a strong chest. He had a dark face with angry-looking eyes, and was about 35. If he had been a young, attractive gentleman, I would have been too shy to offer help. But as he was not handsome and even quite rough, I felt I wanted to help him. "I can't leave you, sir, so late on this lonely road, till I see you are fit enough to get on your horse," I insisted. He looked at me for the first time when I said this. "I think you ought to be at home yourself," he answered. "Do you live near here?" "In that house over there," I said. "And I'm not at all afraid of being out at night. I'm just going to Hay to post a letter, and I'll be happy to take a message for you." "You live in that house?" he asked, surprised, pointing to Thornfield Hall, which was lit up in the moonlight. "Yes, sir," I replied. "Whose house is it?" he asked. "Mr. Rochester's." "Do you know Mr. Rochester?" was his next question. "No, I've never seen him," I answered.
You aren't a servant at Thornfield Hall, of course. You must be... He hesitated, looking at my plain black dress. He seemed puzzled to know who I was, so I helped him. I am the governess. Ah, the governess. I had forgotten. He tried to get up, but his leg was still hurting him badly. I don't want you to fetch help, but you could help me yourself if you like. Of course, sir, I said. And so he leaned his weight on my shoulder, and I helped him walk to his horse. In a moment, he had jumped onto the horse's back. Thank you. Now take your letter to Hay. Then hurry home, he called as he rode off into the distance. I walked on, glad to have helped someone, to have done something active for once. In my mind, I saw that dark, strong face, and I still felt excited by our meeting. Even when I arrived back at Thornfield, I did not go in for a while. I did not want to go into the dark house where I would spend the evening quietly with old Mrs. Fairfax. So I stayed outside, staring up at the moon and the stars with a beating heart, wishing and dreaming of a different, more exciting life. When I entered, the servants told me that Mr. Rochester had arrived, and that he had hurt his leg when his horse slipped on ice on the road to Hay.
Chapter 8. Getting to know Mr. Rochester. Thornfield Hall became quite busy the next day, now that the master had returned. People kept coming to visit him on business. I enjoyed the new, cheerful atmosphere, but I could not make Adele concentrate on her lessons because she was constantly talking about the presents Mr. Rochester had promised to bring her. That evening, we were invited to have tea with him. I immediately recognized the traveler I had helped, with his dark hair and skin, his square forehead, and his stern look. His leg was supported on a chair, but he made no effort to greet me when I entered. In fact, he neither spoke nor moved. "Have you brought a present for Miss Eyre with you as well?" Adele asked him. "A present? Who wants a present?" he said angrily. "Did you expect a present, Miss Eyre? Do you like presents?" "I haven't much experience of them, sir," I answered. "Anyway, I have no right to expect a present, as I haven't done anything to deserve one." "Don't be so modest. I've been talking to Adele. She's not very clever, but you've taught her well." "Sir, that is my present. That's what a teacher wants most: praise of her pupil's progress." Mr. Rochester drank his tea in silence. After tea, he called me closer to the fire, while Adele played with Mrs. Fairfax. "Where were you before you came here?" he asked. "I was at Lowood School, sir, for 8 years.
Ah, yes. A charity school. 8 years. I'm surprised you lasted so long in such a place. There is something like magic in your face. When I met you on the road to Hay last night, I almost thought you would put a spell on my horse. I still wonder if you did. What about your parents?" "They're dead. I don't remember them." "And your relations?" "I have none." "Who recommended you to come here?" "I advertised.
And Mrs. Fairfax answered the advertisement. Yes, said the old housekeeper. And I thank God she did. She's a good teacher for Adele and a kind friend to me. Don't try to give her a good character, Mrs. Fairfax, said Mr. Rochester sternly. She and her magic made my horse slip on the ice last night. Mrs. Fairfax looked puzzled and clearly did not understand. Miss Eyre, continued Mr. Rochester, how old were you when you started at Lowood? About 10. And you stayed there 8 years, so you are now 18? I nodded. I would never have been able to guess your age, he went on. Now, what did you learn there? Can you play the piano? A little. Of course, that's what all young women say. Go and play a tune on the piano in the library. I did as he asked. That's enough, he called after a few minutes. Yes, you do indeed play a little. Just like any schoolgirl. Better than some, perhaps. Now, bring me your sketches. I fetched them from my room. Having looked carefully at them, he chose 3.
These are interesting, he said. You have only expressed the shadow of your ideas because you aren't good enough at drawing or painting. But the ideas, where did they come from? Who taught you to draw wind and space and feeling? But put them away now, Miss Eyre. Do you realize it's 9 o'clock? Adele should be in bed by now. Good night to you all. Mr. Rochester's mood had suddenly changed, and he clearly wished to be alone. Later that evening, I talked to Mrs. Fairfax. You said Mr. Rochester was a little peculiar, I said. Well, what do you think, Miss Eyre? I think he is very peculiar and quite rude. He may seem like that to a stranger. I'm so used to him that I never notice it. And he has had family troubles, you know. But he has no family, I answered. Not now, that's true. But he did have an older brother who died 9 years ago. 9 years is a long time. Surely he has recovered from losing his brother by now. Well, there was a lot of bad feeling in the family. The father was very fond of money and wanted to keep the family property together. So the elder brother inherited most of it. I don't know what happened, but I do know Mr. Edward, that's the master, quarreled with his family. That's why he's traveled so much. When his brother died, he inherited Thornfield, but I'm not surprised he doesn't come here often. Why should he stay away? I asked, surprised. Perhaps he thinks it's a sad place. I really don't know. It was clear that Mrs. Fairfax would not tell me any more. One evening, a few days later, I was invited to talk to Mr. Rochester after dinner. At the far end of the room, Adele was delightedly telling Mrs. Fairfax about the present she had received. Mr. Rochester called me closer to the fire. I don't like the conversation of children or old ladies, he murmured to me. But they are entertaining each other at the moment, so I can amuse myself. Tonight he did not look so stern. and there was a softness in his fine, dark eyes. As I was looking at him, he suddenly turned and caught my look. "Do you think I'm handsome, Miss Eyre?" he asked. Normally, I would have taken time to think and said something polite, but somehow I answered at once, "No, sir." "Ah, you really are unusual. You are a quiet, serious little person, but you can be almost rude." "Sir, I'm sorry. I should have said that beauty doesn't matter or something like that." "No, you shouldn't. I see. You criticize my appearance and then you stab me in the back. All right, tell me. What is wrong with my appearance?" "Mr. Rochester, I didn't intend to criticize you." "Well, now you can. Look at my head. Do you think I am intelligent?" He pointed to his huge, square forehead. "I do, sir." "Is it rude to ask if you are also good?"
Stabbing me again. Just because I said I didn't like talking to old ladies and children? Well, young lady, I wanted to be good when I was younger. But life has been a struggle for me. And I've become as hard and tough as a rubber ball. I only have a little goodness left inside. He was speaking rather excitedly, and I thought perhaps he had been drinking. "Miss Eyre, you look puzzled. Tonight, I want conversation. It's your turn. Speak." I said nothing, but smiled coldly. "I'm sorry if I'm rude, Miss Eyre. But I'm 20 years older and more experienced than you. Don't you think I have the right to command you?" "No, sir, not just because you're older and more experienced than me. You would have the right only if you'd made good use of your experience of life. I don't accept that, as I've made very bad use of my experience. But will you agree to obey my orders anyway?" I thought, he is peculiar. He's forgotten that he's paying me $30 a year to obey his orders. And I said, "Not many masters bother to ask if their servants are offended by their orders." "Of course. I'd forgotten that I pay you a salary. So will you agree because of the salary?" "No, sir, not because of that. But because you forgot about it, and because you care whether a servant of yours is comfortable or not." "I gladly agree. You have honesty and feeling. There are not many girls like you. But perhaps I go too fast. Perhaps you have awful faults to counterbalance your few good points. And perhaps you have too," I thought.
He seemed to read my mind and said quickly, "Yes, you're right. I have plenty of faults. I went the wrong way when I was 21 and have never found the right path again. I might have been very different. I might have been as good as you and perhaps wiser. I am not a bad man. Take my word for it, but I have done wrong. It wasn't my character, but circumstances which were to blame. Why do I tell you all this? Because you're the sort of person people tell their problems and secrets to. Because you're sympathetic and give them hope. Do you think so, sir? I do. You see, when life was difficult, I became desperate. And now all I have is regret. Asking forgiveness might cure it, sir. No, it won't. What I really should do is change my character. And I still could, but it's difficult. And if I can't have happiness, I want pleasure. Even if it's wrong. Pleasure may taste bitter, sir. How do you know, a pure young thing like you? You have no experience of life and its problems. But I will try to lead a better life. I stood up. The conversation was becoming hard to follow. I must put Adele to bed now, I said. Don't be afraid of me, Miss Eyre. You don't relax or laugh very much. Perhaps because of the effect Lowood School has had on you. But in time you will be more natural with me, and laugh and speak freely. You're like a restless bird in a cage. When you get out of the cage, you'll fly very high. Good night.
To be continued. Good luck.